Meet the modern consumer. They tap their phone, grab their coffee, and walk out without breaking stride. To an observer, they look completely in control. They never miss a payment, they use buy now, pay later tools to divide their cash flow, and they view expensive car modification as a strategic addition to their resale value. Yet, despite checking every box on the list of responsible habits, their net worth is quietly shrinking. Every month, a little more of their paycheck is committed to a creditor before it even hits their account. Every step of that modern checkout interaction, the physical tap, the biometric unlock, the instant confirmation, is built to remove the weight of the transaction. The barriers that once slowed down spending are being systematically dismantled. When money is effortless to spend, the long-term cost of credit becomes easy to ignore. It creates a state of invisible debt, where we feel in control right up until the monthly obligations become suffocating. Historically, spending money was an act of friction. Handing over physical cash or counting out bills required a mental pause, a moment where the brain registered that its resources were actually leaving. Modern digital wallets remove that physical pause entirely. When you use a phone to pay, you aren't spending a separate, weightless currency. It is simply a digital wrapper for the same credit or debit card, but without the psychological sting of a physical transaction. Once the physical barrier is gone, the mental barriers follow. We start employing rationalizations, like the online trend of girl math, convincing ourselves that if we return an item for store credit, the next purchase is essentially free. This mental accounting shows up in many forms. A driver might spend thousands on custom car parts, assuming they'll recover that cost during a sale. In reality, most buyers want factory-standard vehicles, turning those investments into sunk recreational costs. Between frictionless payment screens and our own mental accounting, our devices and our logic work together to help us ignore the reality of money leaving our possession. Once spending feels weightless, the ecosystem introduces a new hook: buy now, pay later. These services are marketed as simple budgeting tools, but they are credit agreements. You receive a product now in exchange for a legally binding promise to pay later. By framing a purchase as 4 payments of $25, the brain registers a minor expense rather than a $100 debt. When the cost is fragmented, the brain stops tallying the total. It becomes possible to activate 3, 5, or 10 of these plans simultaneously across different apps. These microloans often bypass traditional credit checks. By the time the consumer realizes the scale, they're facing a massive monthly debt burden that they never intentionally signed up for. This conversion turns fleeting impulse buys into fixed, long-term claims on your future income, all while being presented as a simple convenience. This leads to the most dangerous layer of the credit ecosystem, the illusion that a minimum payment represents financial health. On a high-balance account, the math works against you. This block represents a standard monthly minimum payment, dropping down to pay off the total debt. But when that payment hits the balance, most of it is consumed by interest. Only a tiny sliver actually chips away at the money you originally borrowed. You can make every payment on time for years, protecting your credit score perfectly, while the actual balance remains virtually frozen. In this system, a perfect payment history isn't always a sign of wealth. It often just means you've become a sustainable source of profit for compounding interest. Modern payment interfaces prioritize speed, because speed obscures the math. The frictionless experience is a deliberate strategy to keep the actual cost of debt out of sight. Falling into these traps isn't a failure of intelligence. It's the result of interacting with a multi-billion-dollar industry designed to lower your psychological defenses. Carrying debt is measured in the loss of control. Every high-interest balance represents a portion of your future time and labor already spent on something from the past. Survival in this ecosystem requires a conscious effort to reintroduce the friction that has been removed. You have to force the pause that the apps are trying to eliminate. Look past the interface, reject the rationalizations that make spending feel free, and track exactly where your money goes on the balance sheet. Responsibility isn't about the payments you make, it's about the money you keep.